just gonna do initialized, normal, and I press enter. That creates a brand new performance layout with one instrument ready to go. Alright, now forgive me, my camera has a little glare on it, so hopefully you can see everything clearly. Alright, I'm gonna get rid of this first instrument by clicking on the name, clicking category search, and let me just add a piano. So let's pick the CFX stage, click enter. That adds it to your performance, and now you can play it. All right, let's add a couple more instruments that we want to switch back and forth between. Let's add a guitar. Let's add the third part. Let's do the polypad. It's a green one, so only one part will come into your performance. So now we have 3 different parts for this performance. So let's get to it. First thing you want to do is check out the MIDI controller assignments that already import in with the instrument. And the way you do that is by clicking the edit button. All right. And here you see a layout with different tabs for the different controller assignments that are associated with the instrument. You can use this display filter to select which category you want to view. For example, pitch bend, mod wheel. So I'm gonna scroll all the way down to all, and basically what I want to do is delete all of these, the ones that are already assigned to it. You don't really need them right now for this purpose. So I'm gonna delete this, empty. Just to speed things up, let's do the same thing with the other 2 parts. I'm gonna do it real fast. I'm gonna click part on the bottom, and then I'm gonna click the part that I wanna work with. Click part 2. Do the same thing, just go ahead and delete everything. All right, so now we have 3 parts without any controller assignments on it. And let's go to another page. We just finished looking at part 1, part 2, and part 3. But now we want to look at the whole performance by clicking the comment button. All right, so once you click the comment button, you're looking at the whole performance, parts 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 16. So right now, I'm going to do the same thing, go to display filter and display all. So I'm going to use my scroll wheel to scroll all the way down to all, click enter. All right, and look, we don't have anything assigned to the whole performance just yet. Let's talk about one thing before we proceed. These 4 knobs are going to be very useful when creating these assignments. These are assignable knobs, right? Assignable knob 1, 2, 3, 4, and then when I click this orange button, it starts blinking, and that lets me know that now they've transformed into assignable knob 5, 6, 7, and 8. All right, about the super knob, really quick, because it's important. So the super knob can pretty much be attached to all 8 of these. If you connect the super knob to one or more of these smaller knobs, individual knobs, then when you move this, however you program it, the setting for these knobs will move in the same way. All right. Now, for each part, you have a set of 8 assignable knobs, right? And also you have a set of 8 for the entire project. So mainly to do what we're setting out to do, we just have to worry about volume. The goal is to use the super knob, right? Starting from the very far left, start with the first part volume at its normal level, full level. All right. As we move to the right, with our super knob, the volume of the first part has to decrease while the volume of the second part has to increase at the same time so that they crossfade. And so by the time the volume of the first part is all the way down, the volume of the second part is all the way up. And that should happen somewhere in the middle right here. So we want to let that second part play for a little bit, right? Until we get up to about here. And then once we're ready to transition, we have to turn that volume down while simultaneously turning up the volume of our third part. Okay? So you're having two crossfades. All right. So we're on the main common edit page for control assignments. First thing you want to do is click the plus. It creates a tab, and this is a controller assignment. All right. So what you want to do is click on it. This is the destination, which will let you know what you're affecting. All right. So really simply, you just click on your first part. All right. And then, so these are your 8-part knobs, the ones that we just saw to the left. Assignable knob number 1 to assignable knob number 8. Okay. What we have to do is decide which parameters we want to have on which knob. In this case, to make it simple, let's just put volume on knob number 1 for each part. So for our first part, the piano, we're gonna use assignable knob number 1. All right, so there we have it right there. All right, so part 1, assignable knob 1 is available for use at this point. I'm trying to go slow because this was very tricky for me to understand, and I think it takes really understanding the inner workings of why this is happening in order for it to work. Once you understand why everything works, then you can kind of like create whatever configuration you want. All right. So we created our first assignment. Assignable knob number 1 is the source, and that's within part 1. Right. This is what we're actually affecting. Let's click that plus sign. And then we're going to go and change it to volume, because what we want to do is affect the volume of part 1. So we click on the parameter that we want to affect. And then we go to part parameter. And then we find volume. And there you go. All right. So just to recap, we went to the common edit page. We created a full controller assignment. The controller that we're using is assignable knob 1 of part 1. Okay, so when we move this assignable knob 1 of part 1, something's going to happen to the volume. All right, what that is, we have to figure out and create. All right, so here's our volume. Okay, so now what we want to do is create a curve for our volume. Pretty much what we want to happen is we want the volume to the right. I mean, when we start moving the knob from the left, the super knob from the left, we want the volume to be at normal level. And then as we move to the right, we want it to fade out so that our other instrument can fade in. So we have to create a curve. Let's not mess with the curve that's already there. Let's create a user curve. Let's go to user 1. All right, actually I have some curves already created. So let's start with user 12. All right, and because we're on the common edit page, you're not able to really edit that user curve. So you have to go into part 1 control settings. All right. So we're leaving the common edit. We're going to part 1 since we created this control assignment for part 1 in the common edit page, but it still belongs to part 1. So when we do that, we edit the curve by clicking that edit curve, and now we have a layout where we can design our curve. So just think of this black box as the as your super knob, right? So this is super knob turned all the way to the left, and this is turned all the way to the right. So when it's to the left right now, your output is going to be at 0. When it's turned all the way to the right, your output is going to be at 127. And the output essentially is going to refer to the volume, and the input is going to refer to the number, the position of the super knob. All right, so what we wanted to do is start at normal volume, and then with the volume of the first part to start at normal volume, and then decrease like around here, so that our second instrument can be right here. Or since we have all this space, let's just do it like this. So we'll do the first volume. It's going to fade out to about right here. Second part should fade in here and then fade out again. And the third part should fade in and stay up. Volume should stay up. Okay. So for this first part, let's just go ahead and do it. You can use your scroll wheel to move up or down. Once you select the output number. So I wanted to start at 64, which is essentially going to mean no change to the volume. 64 is going to be our max for all of these, and 64 is just going to mean normal. Okay. So this is our starting volume. Now, as we move our super knob to the right, we have another entry that we can use. And so remember, we want it to fade out around close to the middle, so we can keep it up a little bit. 59, go to the next one, have it about right there, go to the next one. It should start fading out a good bit. Go here, bring that down. All right, there's my fade out, and then I can move all the rest of these to 0. If I wanted the volume to increase at the end, when I get to the end of the super knob, then I can keep that like that, but I want everything to play individually. So I want the piano to play as it turns, and it gradually decreases in volume until we get to around the middle. And at this point, I might want the curve to be a little bit more like this to give the piano more airplay. So I'm gonna bring those back up a little bit. All right, there we go. We have our first curve set. Click, oops, and then I can click this button up top to get back to the part. Oops, I clicked the wrong button. So in order to get back there, we didn't lose anything. You just have to click edit, or click on the part, and then click edit. And then see, we have our curve right there. All right, now we can't use uni. Just know that you have to set it to bilateral. Okay, and set your ratio all the way down, all the way up to 63. And what that's going to do is give us access to the full range of 0 to 127. 127 is max volume, 0 is minimum volume. We want it to start at middle volume. So that's why let's go back to the curve. That's why we started it at 64, because that's normal volume. Or that's what we're going to set normal volume as to keep everything unified. All right, so it goes from normal volume or middle volume all the way down to 0. And forgive me if I'm like moving slow. I just really want y'all to understand this, because it was a challenge for me to understand. Like, I literally spent the past few days digging into this like I was a mad scientist. So if I can help somebody by simplifying it a little bit, then that's a good thing. All right, so we have our first one. It's done, completely done. So click exit. So let's just go back to the comment edit. All right, cool. We're back on the comment edit page. And so now there's only one assignment, and that's part 1, assignable knob 1. So when we turn assignable knob 1 to the right, the volume is going to decrease with this curve. So it's going to play for a little bit, and then we keep turning to the right, and then it's going to decrease. That's attached to assignable knob 1 of part 1, essentially. That's the first step. Now we have to do the same thing with the other 2 parts. So we go to the destination first. Mind you, we're in the common edit window. We go to part 2, assignable knob number 1 of part 2. All right, part 2, assign 1. Let me exit out of there. All right, and same steps. Click the plus sign, change the parameter to volume, and that's under part parameter. Go to volume. All right. You have to create a user curve. I'll switch it to bilateral, and then change the ratio to the full amount, 63. Click on standard so we can create our user curve. Go to user, and then we use the last one, which was 12, so let's just do user 13. Now we can go in and edit it. So let's go to edit part 2, control settings. Then you got to go to edit user curve. And you do the same thing, except instead of starting here, we want the volume to be 0 while that first instrument plays. So let's go ahead and bring that volume down. Then we can start rising a little bit. And our maximum is going to be 64. All right. Bring that down gradually. You might have to play with it to get the hang of like creating these curves. You can use the top row to move left or right. Move your pins left or right. All right. So now that's our second curve. All right. Click the back button, and that's what our curve looks like. Part 2 goes from 0 volume, and by the time the knob is in the middle, it's at maximum volume, and then it goes back down to 0 volume so that the other instrument can come in. All right, we're done with this one. Now let's go to part 3. Matter of fact, let's go back to common. Let's click another one, create another assignment. Let's change the parameter to part 3, assignable knob 1. And again, sorry about this glare, y'all. All right, there we go. Now we have part 3. I'll just read it to you. That says part 3, assign 1. We do the same thing, click the plus, change the destination parameter to volume. We go to part parameter. Click volume, exit out of that, create a user curve. Let's do user 14, exit, change the ratio to maximum 63, change the polarity to bipolar. Click on edit part 3 control settings. Edit user curve, make the volume not increase until the third try thing. So something like this, and we want to make volume max out at 64. Let's bring that down a little bit more. All right, now we have a basic starting point to scope our sound. Exit out of there. And let's see. Let me just go back to the comment page to just double check everything. So I click edit. So right now, as you can see, we have part 1, a controller assigned to part 1, assignable knob number 1. We have that volume decreasing. And all of this is as the assignable knob rotates to the right. So next we have part 2, assignable knob 1. That's the curve, it goes up and down. Lastly, we have part 3, assignable knob 1, starts from 0 and it increases to 64. All right, that's all you have to do. Now let's test it out and then set some levels to make sure everything is cool. All right, I'm gonna turn my assignable knob all the way to the left, and you see the 8 knobs kind of move with it. The reason this happens, and I actually forgot to show you this. All right, now you have to go into the motion control tab and just make sure everything is set to move from minimum to maximum. So your knob value is going to be 0 when it's all the way to the left, and when it's all the way to the right, it's going to be 127. Make sure all of these are checked on. And actually, since we're only using 3, you could turn off the other ones. But everything looks right, I believe. So we can go ahead and test this thing out. Alright, so our super knob is all the way to the left, and I just played a note. So you're only hearing the piano, which is how it should be. As we rotate to the right, we should hear that sound decrease. Uh-oh, we ran into a problem. So this middle sound is not playing long enough, or the beginning sound is a little bit too long. You hear the guitar, right? But you don't hear it long enough. Alright, and that's probably either one or two things is happening. We have to set the volumes, or we have to change the curves. So we got to go back. Let's click exit. Click on performance home. Alright, as you can see, the volume of the piano is way up and everything else is down and then back up. So let's just even these things out. Put it halfway, 64, just to have a starting point. Now let's try it again. See what happens. All the way to the left. Uh-oh, what happened to our third sound? Oh, there you go. I accidentally pressed this button, which is our keyboard control button, so it wasn't receiving any input from the keyboard. Alright, so now we could try it again. Alright, let's do it again. Alright, so that works. Now if we want to tweak one more thing, if you have a foot pedal, like an expression pedal that you use for swells and all of that, then you might want to assign the super knob to, or assign your foot pedal to the super knob. I think by default, foot controller number 2 is already assigned to the super knob, but if you're not sure, you can go into the settings under utility. Matter of fact, no, it's not under utility. Click on edit. You go to common edit. And then click general. Matter of fact, not control. And then go down to control control number, and then look for your foot controller. So foot controller 1 is CC11. Foot controller 2 is assigned to the super knob. CC for the super knob is 95. So if you wanted to use foot controller 1 to control the super knob, then you can just change that number to 95, and that'll do the same thing. If you want the foot controller to do anything else, you can look at these numbers and just kind of like rearrange it how you want. All right, so everything should be working now. Now I'm using my foot pedal. I have it all the way down, so it's to the left. So the super knob is in the left position. As I push the foot pedal down, it switches to the guitar. As I keep going, it switches to your synth. So it works. Alright, thanks for tuning in for a tutorial about the Yamaha MODX. Hopefully it was helpful. Good luck with everything, and I will be coming back soon with another tutorial. Have a good one. Peace.